The day of Grandma Elon's funeral started cold. Not just the weather, the mood. I arrived early at the church, still trying to process that she was gone. She'd raised me like a second mother. And now I was supposed to sit through a ceremony while pretending everything was fine. My father was already there, standing near the casket, expression stiff. He wasn't crying. Never did, especially not for her. What I didn't know then was that this day would break everything I thought I knew about family. As more people arrived, I noticed my cousin Marcus walking in. Armani suit. Sunglasses indoors. He hadn't spoken to Grandma in 4 years. Not since she cut him off after that investment scam. And yet there he was, hugging my father like they were brothers. I sat in the second pew, clutching the tiny pendant Grandma gave me when I turned 18. She used to say, "It's not the size of a gift, it's what it carries with it." At the time, I didn't understand. But that morning, I felt its weight. After the service, people filtered out to the family hall where the reading of Grandma's will would happen privately. I expected something simple. I thought I already knew her wishes. She told me a dozen times. "Everything goes to you, sweetheart. I've already made it clear." I entered the room, and something was off. The lawyer, a man I'd never seen before, stood at the head of the table. My father sat next to him. Marcus was beside my dad, smirking like he already knew the ending. "Thank you all for coming," the lawyer began. "We're here to execute the final testament of Ellen M. Carter, per the version filed and witnessed 3 months ago. 3 months ago. I froze. Grandma had a stroke 5 months ago. She hadn't even spoken clearly since then. How could she have updated her will? I raised my hand. "Excuse me, but that doesn't make sense," Grandma told me. My father cut me off. "Please, don't interrupt the process." I stared at him. He hadn't even looked at me all morning. The lawyer continued. The new will was read aloud. All financial assets. To Marcus. The house. To Marcus. The jewelry to be sold. Proceeds to be donated. And me. A handwritten note in the appendix. To my granddaughter. I hope you'll understand. Love, Grandma. I couldn't breathe. I didn't even speak. I just walked out into the hallway and sat on the floor. 20 minutes passed before I even registered someone was standing beside me. It was Aunt Teresa, Grandma's sister. She crouched down and whispered, "Your grandma was scared near the end." Said someone was pressuring her, but I thought she was confused. That's when I remembered. 3 weeks before she passed, Grandma left me a voicemail. It was late. Her voice was raspy. I never really listened to it. I was too heartbroken. I pulled out my phone. It was still there. 1 minute. 52 seconds. And the last 10 words of the transcription preview made my blood run cold. If they changed the will, play this out loud. I sat in my car outside the church, phone trembling in my hand. I hit play, "Sweetheart, if you're hearing this, something's wrong. They've been pressuring me. Your father and Marcus, they keep coming by when you're not here, telling me to sign things. But I didn't change my will. Not really. They brought a lawyer I didn't know. I was scared and tired. I'm sorry. If they change the will, play this out loud. You deserve the truth." My throat closed. I hadn't even processed her death. And now I had this proof that something was wrong, that they'd manipulated her, that they'd stolen from her and from me. I drove straight home, hands shaking, and called Aunt Teresa. When she picked up, her voice was flat. "You heard it, didn't you?" "I did," I said, "and I'm not letting this go." The next few days were a blur of documents and calls. I reached out to her old lawyer, the one she used for over 10 years. His name was Mr. Camden. When I told him what happened, he sighed. She called me about a week before she passed, said she felt something was off, but then canceled our last meeting, said your father was handling things. She didn't cancel, I said. They kept me away. That weekend, she had a fall. My dad said I couldn't visit her, and suddenly, it all clicked. That was the weekend the new will was filed. I drove to Camden's office and reviewed her original testament, dated 18 months ago. Everything, house, savings, insurance, all listed to me. And now, gone. Replaced after a stroke, under pressure. Camden looked at me and said carefully, "If that recording is authentic, you may have a case for undue influence, or even fraud." I hadn't planned to go to court. I wasn't ready for a legal war with my own father. But they'd already started it. I sent the voicemail to a professional forensic audio analyst. He confirmed it was authentic. No edits. Grandma's voice. Clear. Intent. Next, I met with a family attorney. She listened to the whole story, from the funeral to the final line of the voicemail. When it ended, she looked at me and said, "You're not just fighting for your inheritance, you're defending her legacy." That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked into Grandma's old room, still untouched, filled with books, perfume, and that framed picture of us at the beach. I sat on the bed, opened her jewelry box, and found the old brooch she always wore to weddings. Behind it was a folded slip of paper. Just 3 words. Don't trust him. No name, no date. But I didn't need one. I knew exactly who she meant. The next step wasn't easy. I filed a formal legal challenge to the will, a petition for fraud and undue influence. My lawyer submitted the audio file, and Camden provided a written statement verifying Grandma's original intent. I knew my father would retaliate, and he did. He called me 2 days later. "You've gone too far," he said. "You think a voicemail means anything?" I stayed silent. "Then he did. You're making a fool of yourself." For what? A few dollars. It wasn't about money. It was about what Grandma believed and what she wanted. He hung up before I could respond. A week later, I got a call from the court. A date had been set. The will reading would be reviewed officially, and all parties were required to attend. The news spread quickly through the family. Suddenly, people who hadn't spoken to me in years were calling, asking if it was true, if I was really suing my father. Some were supportive. Most were silent. The day of the hearing felt surreal. I walked into the courtroom dressed in black, holding my grandmother's pendant. Marcus and my father sat on the other side of the aisle, smug, bored, whispering to each other like this was all a game, but they weren't ready. The judge called us in. Testimonies were heard. Camden spoke first, presenting the original will and explaining Grandma's clear intent to leave everything to me. Then came the audio expert, confirming the recording's authenticity. Finally, my lawyer stood. She pressed play. "If they change the will, play this out loud." The courtroom went silent for nearly 2 minutes. Only Grandma's trembling voice filled the room. Her fear, her clarity, her instructions. I didn't look at my father. I didn't need to. When the audio ended, the judge leaned forward, frowning. "This is compelling." My father's lawyer tried to discredit it, claimed Grandma was confused, that she was clearly declining mentally. But then Aunt Teresa stood up, uninvited, unscheduled. "Your Honor," she said. Ellen was still sharper than anyone I know. She told me something was wrong, and now I see I should have done more. The judge allowed a brief statement. Marcus was visibly sweating now. After a short recess, the judge returned. "Based on the evidence and testimonies presented, I am freezing the execution of the most recent will pending further investigation. I'm also ordering a full audit of the circumstances under which the updated will was signed." That was enough. For now, as I walked out of the courtroom, I passed my father. He didn't say a word. Marcus looked like he wanted to disappear. Outside, Aunt Teresa hugged me. "She'd be proud of you," she whispered. But it wasn't over yet. Because what came next would tear open a secret Grandma had kept for decades, and it had nothing to do with money. The investigation moved slowly, but it moved. Weeks passed. Then a letter arrived. My lawyer called me before I opened it. "You'll want to sit down," she said. "It's not just about the will anymore." Inside the envelope was a sealed document, an amendment, written by Grandma, dated just days before the contested will was signed. It wasn't filed officially, just notarized and stored in a safety deposit box under my grandmother's name. In it, she wrote, In the event of coercion, I leave behind this addendum to clarify my final wishes and the truth about my son. My heart stopped. It wasn't about Marcus. It was about my father. Grandma detailed how, in the last year of her life, she discovered documents tying my father to multiple unauthorized withdrawals from her investment accounts under her name. I wanted to forgive him, but when he brought Marcus back into my house and tried to get me to rewrite everything, I knew what they were planning. She even mentioned a recorded conversation stored on a USB hidden behind the bookshelf in her room. I went straight to her house. The room had been untouched since the funeral. I found the shelf, third one down, behind a row of old cookbooks, a flash drive taped to the back. Back home, I plugged it in. It was a recording. My father's voice. Clear. Cold. "Just sign it, Mom. It's cleaner this way." She doesn't need to know. She's just a kid. She'll understand someday. Her voice followed. "She's your daughter." "Yeah. But Marcus knows how to handle money. Let's be real. She's just a sentimental mess." That sentence broke me. Not the betrayal. Not the greed. The dismissal. The reduction of who I was, of what Grandma and I meant to each other too, just a sentimental mess. I turned the flash drive over to my lawyer. A week later, we received confirmation. The court would reopen the case, and formal charges of fraud and elder coercion were under review. That night, I visited Grandma's grave. I sat on the grass, pendant in hand, and whispered everything that had happened. "You were right," I said. "They tried, but your voice saved everything." 3 months later, I got the final ruling. Grandma's original will was reinstated in full. The new will was deemed invalid due to coercion. Marcus was ordered to return all assets. My father, under investigation, facing serious consequences. But that wasn't the real ending. A few weeks after, I hosted a small memorial dinner. Just family who truly loved her. At the end of the night, I stood up and played that voicemail again. Not as proof, but as a tribute, sweetheart. If you're hearing this, something's wrong. Every single person at that table was crying, because a voice, shaky, fragile, still held power, still told the truth. Still protected. In her final days, she may have been scared, but she was never weak, and neither am I.